The one thing I never thought I would be is an addict. And it wasn't until recently I realised I've actually been an addict my whole life, even as a child. I've just recently given up alcohol, not because I was necessarily an alcoholic or even addicted to it, but in a way I was. And it's not the way that you might think. I diagnosed with ADHD a few years ago, and there's a few stats that are worth considering. People with ADHD are much more likely to become addicts. I filmed a separate video on this, but we are basically born addicts. And what we're addicted to is so much harder nowadays because it's so much more readily available. And that's dopamine. Where do you get dopamine from? This is going to break. Where do you get dopamine from? Food, alcohol, the first couple of drinks. Same with food, the first couple of bites, and then it actually tapers off, but you still chase it. Drugs, progress, the gym. There's a lot of places healthily and unhealthily to get dopamine from. I'll maybe put a list on screen. The issue with this whole thing is the fact that right now, my phone is recording back there, so I don't have it on me, so I can't show you the scroll. But having literally a dopamine machine in front of you, I think is probably the worst thing ever for people with ADHD, but also potentially one of the best for people who are ADHD and entrepreneurial, etc. And there's this kind of double-edged sword with it. I'm addicted to my phone also. Justify it by saying that's where my work is, which is true. But in all honesty, dopamine in itself is what we all crave. The issue with it is that you have instantaneous dopamine, and if you get addicted to that, it's like an endless cycle. Recently given up alcohol for a year. So I've recently given up alcohol for a year, and since doing that, I find myself searching for other places to get dopamine from. And we're at the weekend now, but like more so on an evening after the kids are in bed, something like that. I usually have a beer. I'm craving something else. So you can either crave something when you're trying to be more healthy. This is why when people stop drinking or whatever, they end up running ultra marathons. They end up because they are dopamine addicts, or they become really successful in business or whatever. So my point of this is that dopamine is not something it's not something to avoid chasing. It's just, where do you put the focus? And I think it all comes down to self-awareness. And probably one of the most dangerous people on the planet is someone who's not self-aware and has ADHD. Because if they're not working on that level of self-awareness, they're the most impulsive people on the planet. Saying that, having not been self-aware myself and have ADHD, that's when I found life the hardest. Point of this is, people are much more likely to be overweight, addicts, whatever. So whatever part of it you're struggling with, if you have ADHD, whether it's food noise, one of the biggest things that I've found is that whatever you're doing has to all align. Like, it has to be, whatever you're working towards has to be exciting enough. Otherwise, you'll feel a bit like an imposter. If I really look back now to when I was extremely overweight, obese, I was going to the gym. I was still addicted to the pursuit of getting in shape, and I thought it was my genetics or whatever. I was just eating too much. I was also addicted to food, and I just wasn't focusing on that. Down below, I'll link the 28-day food fix and a free meal plan, etc., right? ADHD or not, that will help. But in all honesty, when it comes to ADHD, one of the best things that has helped me is knowing that I genuinely don't have the solution, and neither does anyone else. Because we don't need a solution. You just need the ability to basically constantly be making a few degrees of a turn, still in the right direction, to go forward and distract yourself enough but still be in this kind of same general direction than constantly doing a U-turn. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves. They're going forward and then back and forward and back, and they're constantly doing a U-turn. Whereas kind of just breaking stuff down into weekly or monthly targets and daily targets, if it needs to be for a while, eventually that'll align itself if you're aligned to what you actually want to do. And if you're chasing that kind of quick hit dopamine, and I'm not saying this preaching, because I've struggled with it for the longest time, with the quick hitting dopamine, because being in your own head is extremely, excruciatingly difficult. I don't think enough people talk about it. Everyone looks as if they've got their life figured out. But I filmed different videos that I've restarted about 1,000,000 times today. Spent about an hour trying to catch a cockroach. I nearly flew away with this umbrella and it broke the other day because it nearly took me off this 3-story roof. Everything's like a comedy sketch with ADHD. Everything's so all over the place. And I'm not going to act like I've got it all figured out. I just know that not everyone, but I would say the majority of people that I've met with ADHD are genuine. And I just want to be genuine on this channel. I didn't really know exactly what topic I wanted to talk about, but I can see a lot of patterns. I can see patterns in people who are successful, who have ADHD or ASD, both if you're me, or neurodiverse people in general. I can see these patterns. And I can see the patterns because they're creative. We're in the creative age, AI age as well. AI and creativity, right now, you'll win. If you do it right and you stop chasing the instant dopamine and stop consuming, you're never going to figure it out. You're never going to figure a perfect routine out. I've tried all the apps, I've tried all the routines, I've tried all the things. But start to think about, if you're like me and you were chasing the kind of quick hits of dopamine, whether it's through caffeine, pre-workout and stimulants and alcohol, at the end of the day, when you're feeling overwhelmed, I'm still taking a lot of caffeine and still taking the edge off of that. But I'm now close to 30 days sober, which sounds weird from someone that talks about fitness and as a coach. I never used to drink during the week, but I've spoken about this before. I've just kind of normalised chasing that wee edge off at the end of the day when you're overwhelmed. But it went on long enough that I knew I had to stop, and that was holding me back, and I can see that now. And I think one of the key things that when it comes to, even on YouTube, people talking about ADHD all the time, they actually look at themselves and go, do I even believe what I'm saying? When I see all these ADHD planners and whatever, none of them fucking work. Prove me wrong. Like, they work for like 2 weeks, and I'm trying to say, like, I don't have the solutions, and that's it. That's what I'm on here to kind of say, which sounds strange. The solution doesn't exist, and it doesn't need to exist. It's the framing that you give it. So I frame it to where I'm trying not to start again and go backwards. In order to do that, I need to look at what I'm doing. And if there's a new thing I need to start or distract myself from, as long as it's going in the general direction, I'm making a 5-degree turn versus a U-turn. That was the biggest flip and change, because you do get bored of stuff, you chase dopamine, and if you chase in the wrong place, you end up all over the place. If you struggle with ADHD, food noise, you're feeling out of shape, whatever, coaching links are down below. You can watch the food noise video up here, and YouTube will pick another one. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed. This is a very ADHD video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.